Hello, Huskies, and welcome back to the final episode of our Season 2 of our Talk a Latte podcast with Christian and Jamie. Unfortunately, I am your solo host today. Christian is feeling a little bit under the weather and didn't want to put his podcast host hat on today, but I'm joined here with our producer, Farida, who's kind of going to take a step in and take a new role today as my co-host. So, Farida, how are you doing?
I'm well, Jamie. How are you?
I'm great. I think these episodes with our recaps are always kind of hit the feels a little bit because it feels like there's an ending, but plot twist. Not plot twist. Spoiler alert, we will have a season 3 confirmed.
You're not done with us.
No, you are not done with us yet. But season 2, we obviously covered a lot of topics again, and I think with all of these topics, especially with the departments, I think the moral of the story with all of this is just reach out if you need resources. Reach out if you need information, and that's what a common theme was, I feel like, across the episodes that we had this season. So let's get into it. Let's start off with the brief overview of all of our episodes that we talked about this season. So we'll talk about community conduct first. Obviously, Laura Putwin came in, very hilarious person. And what did Laura come in and talk about?
She talked about how to avoid violating Michigan Tech's Code of Conduct and what the repercussions for violating these Code of Conducts would be.
Definitely. And I remember I told her that if Farida ever ends up in her office, that she should let us know. But Farida will not do that.
No.
But yeah, that was another episode, especially that, she's there as a resource, because there are a lot of gray areas with things like this where, you just want to be informed. You want to be educated with these topics. And so anything pertaining to university conduct or, rules and regulations in the local area and on a state level, definitely reach out to Laura and her office on the 3rd floor of the admin building if you have questions there. On another one of our episodes that we had was transportation services. Yeah, and I think it's actually very informative, that episode, because we learned about all of the things that their department does. Obviously, Farida, you mentioned the shuttle, and what is the cost to ride the shuttle, and how does a student come across the routes and where and when to be for using the shuttle?
The shuttle is zero cost for all students, and every student should download, which I'm sure you may have heard of by now, TripShot. The app tells you the routes that the shuttle uses, where the bus stops are, and the times that they arrive at these bus stops.
Yeah, and they do many different routes, and I mean, obviously we're spending a lot of time talking about the shuttle right now because out of our international community, that's probably the most utilized resource from their department, but they have many different shuttle routes. They do shopping shuttles, City of Houghton, City of Hancock. They have a campus shuttle, and so especially as we've seen this past spring semester where we're in the bulk of the winter, that shuttle is definitely a great resource. But other than that, they sell parking permits, so you can avoid any citations on campus. And they also have a Husky Motors division of their department as well, where they rent out vans for departments or even student organizations. So something to look at. And I did touch on winter as well, and so now we will casually go into that, things to do in the winter. We talked about a lot of things in that episode. We had our special guests with us, Lusu, Chitana, and Mariana, and I feel like we just touched the surface of all the things and all the places you can see. So, Farida, out of things to do in the winter, what did we talk about, or what are some of your favorite activities to do or places to see in the winter?
Oh, we talked about snowshoeing, skiing, snowboarding, and this past winter, I enjoyed taking more skiing lessons. I tried it when I first came, but I fell way too many times. So I figured I should give it another shot, and I think it's safe to say that I'm a pretty decent skier.
Heck yeah. And I think, too, along with that, I mean, we did talk as well in that episode about the way to properly dress. And I know in the beginning of winter, like in December or something, I think I'm still in denial about the winter. And so catch me outside with no hat, no gloves. But in that episode, we also talked a lot about how to properly dress because it gets cold. But other than that, in that episode, we talked about some local events as well. Winter Carnival at Michigan Tech is obviously a large one, with broom ball, snow statues, all of that. Hakenpaiva, is a local kind of winter celebration festival, and so there's a lot of activities with that as well. And kind of going along as well with things to do in the winter, we also had an episode with Dan Dahlquist from Mount Ripley, and he talked all about the fees and the resources and what you can do at Mount Ripley and just winter sports in general. So, Farida, you mentioned your skiing and snowboarding. So, what was that experience like for you, and how did you end up coming across the ski hill and these opportunities?
My first experience was through IPS. IPS sends out emails about taking the classes with Mount Ripley, and the prices are subsidized for international students. So I took advantage of that, and then I took the lessons. I cannot remember how much exactly it cost, but then you can check out the Mount Ripley Winter Sports episode for the exact amounts, and you can also email Dan about specific details. All those details should be in the Mount Ripley episode.
Yeah, and I think that it's a really great opportunity. And like Farida mentioned, the first time she actually was exposed to that opportunity was with the IPS and Mount Ripley joint event that we do every winter, where international students, some it might be their first time even seeing the snow. And so this allows them to try out skiing and try out snowboarding at a reduced cost. That fee, no matter what it is, it sometimes changes per year, but it includes the equipment, it includes the lesson, it includes just free riding after that. And so definitely something to take advantage of, because I know the winter can be hard for people. Farida, what would you recommend to students coming in who it might be their first winter? Because obviously that was you as well last year. So what is your word of advice to those new students experiencing winter for the first time?
Take it easy on yourself. Your feelings are valid. It's a completely new experience. It's very cold. It's even cold for the indigents. So how much more somebody that's coming from a completely different climate? So it'll be good to invest in thermal wears. Those are like the best first layers that will be helpful in combating the cold. And also seek help. Talk to people. IPS also has Michigan Tech has the Husky closet. If you are unsure about what kind of clothes you can get, or you are struggling financially, you can always stop by there and then pick out a few things until you can figure out what exactly you want to get for yourself. So embrace it, talk to people, utilize the services of the school, talk to a therapist if you need to, talk to your friends, come to IPS. Just do not stay isolated, because there are lots more people that are going through the exact thing that you are going through, and talking to them will make you feel a lot better.
And I think that's a perfect gateway into another episode that we had. This season was our part 2 of our mental health series. As we mentioned prior in the seasons, we had said how some of these important topics where there's always new information coming about and new events and everything like that, that we are going to start incorporating some series across our podcast. And so mental health, we had part 2 this season. And so on that episode, we had Crystal and Amanda join us from the Center for Student Mental Health and Wellbeing. And as you mentioned, embracing the winter was a big topic with that. We touched a lot on seasonal depression, because there are, ways that you can combat that. And I know someone like me who's lived here my whole life, there are still years where seasonal depression hits me, and I'm a lot more tired, I lose my appetite and things like that. And so seasonal depression is a real thing. We talked about our sun lamp that we have in the IPS office, where we have our Sundays event. So we have specified events during the semester where we have that, but you're more than welcome to come stop in whenever. And also Farida also works with the Center for Student Mental Health and Wellbeing, and so of some of the events that they hold throughout the year. So what are some of these events that you've experienced, or that Crystal and Amanda had mentioned while they were here?
There's the Husky Hour. There's the Behind the Buzz. There are so many others. Cookies and coloring. There's also therapy screening, mental health screening. Depending on what you are going through, there are so many options for what can help you to overcome these situations. It's just to let you know that you are not alone. Whatever you are going through, there are people that are going through the same thing, and they are more than willing to help you to get through it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a very important point, too, because I know a big topic that we talked about in that episode was the stigma around mental health and asking for help, because I know some people are like, I can get through it, I can do this on my own, but it doesn't hurt to ask for help. You know, maybe you need that additional outreach that isn't your social group or your coworkers or your classmates, and, maybe you do need to talk to a counselor, and so definitely, if you feel that you are not feeling like yourself, definitely reach out if you need it.
And also, Crystal and Amanda also touched on how important it is for your physical health to also be how your physical health also impacts your mental health. It's good to step out and take a walk, go for a run, go to the gym. Just move your body in a way that is not harmful to you. That can be very, very helpful in helping you to curb the mental health struggles.
Yeah, physical health is definitely tied hand in hand, I feel like, with emotional and mental health. But I mean, yeah, just kind of, we talked about it in the episode, but kind of just finding your jam and what you find is best to help you out. Some people read, some people write, some people listen to music. Physical health, I mean, will help no matter what. I know going to the gym is a great stress reliever. I know if I go, I feel completely free and calm and released, and so yeah, there is definitely a big benefit there. So a lot of information that we covered in that episode, and that's a very important one that we had, but stay tuned for a part 3 in season 3 for more mental health topics. We also, this season, had met with some Indian students at Michigan Tech to talk about what it was like living as an Indian student in the United States, and more specifically in the Houghton area. And in that episode, we talked to 2 of our current Indian students at Michigan Tech, so be sure you tune into that episode to hear about their experiences. Some of the large topics that we talked about in that episode were cultural differences between the United States and India, whether that is on the academic front, the temperature, obviously that's a common theme that we have on these podcast episodes, as well as other expectations. I know that time management is a thing that actually differs a lot throughout the different countries, and so it was interesting to bring them on and hear about what their expectations were coming to the United States and what it was like compared to back home. So definitely tune into that episode as well, especially if you are a new Indian student, because they can definitely provide expertise to you since they have been here at Michigan Tech. Another episode that we had this season was meeting with African Students Organization, also known as ASO, and Farida, as our lovely producer / co-host for today, that is from Ghana. You are involved with ASO. Tell us a little bit about what ASO is and what kind of events they hold throughout the year.
So just like the name suggests, it's an African students organization. Every African student here at Michigan Tech is a part of this organization, and you really just have to be African to be able to join. And what they do is to help you to acclimatize here as an African, because all of us have shared experiences. So it's easy for you to be able to relate to people who look like you and who have experienced the same things that you've experienced. So they just give you like an insight. They just guide you through dealing with the weather, dealing with academics, dealing with the change of environment, because the educational system may not even be the same compared to wherever you are coming from as an African. And in regards to the events that ASO holds, the list is quite endless, but one of the biggest is the African Nights, which is often held during the spring semester. And they also take part in Parade of Nations. They also organize social events to help you to socialize with other Africans and help you to make friends. And that is the dates for the social events is usually dependent on the academic calendar, so the days are not fixed. And during national celebrations like Thanksgiving, ASO also does their part in trying to get Africans to also get a feel of that by also bringing together Africans to enjoy the Thanksgiving in an African way. ASO also helps new international students to navigate the professional scene here. We collaborate with career services, with IPS, with other departments to give you They collaborate with IPS, with career services to put together workshops that can inform you about how the professional scene here in America is. So the things that ASO does is quite endless, but you can find more detailed. You can find more details in the ASO episode.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, the building community and providing those resources, our African student population, as of recently, has been increasing pretty substantially, and so they have been a key piece in making sure that transition for our new international students has been smooth, and provide that support and make them feel at home. So big shout out to ASO for all that they do. African Night, like you mentioned, is always a lot of fun. There's food, there's music, there's entertainment. It's always a blast. And yeah, be sure to check in and tune in to that ASO episode. There's even a little debate on jollof rice because we love our food in this podcast, and so we had to bring up that controversial topic here. But other than that, we also had an episode where we had two lovely staff members from the Outdoor Adventure Program, also known as OAP, join. Unfortunately, I was unable to make it to that episode, but I did listen through it. But Farida, since you were there, if you would like to kind of touch a little bit on what was discussed in that episode.
So, OAP is another group that I'm a part of, and they organize trips and adventures around the UP. They just help you to know about the hot spots in the UP. If you like to hike, if you like nature, if you like to do anything outdoors, even indoors, but then they are more of like an outdoor adventure group. So they organize different trips and different outdoor adventures which are often dependent on the season. There are hiking trips, there are backpacking trips, there are rock climbing trips, canoeing, kayaking. The list is endless, actually. You can find more details of the trips that they organize in the OAP episode. But then we also found out from the two lovely guests for that episode about the rentals that they also do. They help you to acquire equipment that you need for these outdoor events without necessarily breaking the bank.
Yeah, and I know that is one of my favorite things to do, actually, is to rent some cross-country skis for the winter season. Like you mentioned, kind of what they do is tailored to what the season and the weather currently looks like. But yeah, and you can just go on the tech trails. Obviously, they have their different rates for community members as well as for Michigan Tech students. But if you are looking to make the most of the outdoors and whatever season is currently going on in Michigan, most likely it's probably winter, they will be a great resource for you. So check out that episode if you are interested in how to go about renting equipment or going on some of those fun trips. Another episode that we had this season was GSG, which is the Graduate Student Government. They are similar to ASO in the fact that they provide that support and those resources for students, as well as holding all the events throughout the year. We met with 3 of their current team members at that time to talk about what they do and what their experiences were like, and so that was amazing to meet with them and talk about some of the events that they hold. I know this past Halloween, I actually went to the GSG's Halloween party that they had at the Grad Commons. That they had at the Grad Commons, and so that was a lot of fun. They had music, games, food, and it was just a fun time. So for our graduate student population that we have listening, if you have any questions, if you need support, or you just want to meet other graduate students, be sure to attend one of their sessions or events. Another episode that we covered this season was on all things Faith Fair. So Farida, what is the Faith Fair, and what were some of the topics that they touched on there?
So just like the name suggests, Faith Fair is really just a fair that talks about different religions and introduces these religions to the community. And we had Rob Bishop and Pastor Sarah come by to talk about some of the churches that take part in this Faith Fair. And the dates for this fair is not something I remember right now, but you can find that in the episode. But it's also, if you're interested in building a spiritual life and having a connection with God, this is one of the events that you should definitely check out, and so you can find what aligns with you.
One of the important topics and kind of the takeaways that we touched on in that episode was the fact that even though there are these very specific churches and organizations around campus and the local community that may adapt to a certain environment or might believe certain things, at the end of the day, it's all just about bringing people together with community. And so you don't necessarily need to identify in any certain way on these religious levels, but everyone is welcome. They talked a lot about what those groups are, what the local churches are, as well as some resources that they provide. And we were kind of strategic with it, with who we invited to that podcast episode, because obviously Rob Bishop, he is becoming a celebrity on our podcast as he's been a guest on multiple episodes now. But we also brought Pastor Sarah on, so is because as the pastor at her church, she does a lot of amazing things for our community. And again, it's a group effort. She doesn't expect for people to even attend her church, and she provides these resources to them, such as every Tuesday they have their free meal. I know a lot of our international students take advantage of that opportunity, and so definitely, if you are looking at expanding on your spiritual journey, or even just trying to find a community where you can meet new people and learn new things, that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about sometimes, is just branching out and learning new things. Definitely check out that Faith Fair episode. Another topic that we had on an episode this season was the whole discussion on what needs versus wants is. So we talked a lot about what the difference is between a need and a want. And so Farida, what were some takeaways that you had from that episode? Whether that was just using resources wisely, or what your take on needs versus wants was?
Definitely using resources wisely. Michigan Tech has a vast variety of resources, but it's important to know which one you should rely on and at what specific time. It's important to know how to plan your finances and budgets in a way that you can only take these things when you need them and not just whenever you want them, so that you can make room for other students who could be in a similar situation.
Yeah, and I think too, obviously it's the big part surrounding that discussion was more, is what you think you need actually a want? Do I want Taco Bell for lunch, or do I need Taco Bell for lunch? So we differentiated a lot about that. But on the other side of things, we also kind of touched on not being afraid to ask for help and use those resources as well. So just like when we talked about mental health, that stigma around asking for help, the same thing can go with all these resources as well. Like, if you find that you're going without eating for a day because you need to pay this and pay that, maybe it is time to look into some of those resources, because they're all around campus, they're all around the local community. And so definitely reach out and ask for help if you need it, and especially listen to that episode, because we talked a lot about what those resources are as well as how to use them wisely. In another episode this season, we met with Casey, who handles study abroad at Michigan Tech. Even though this episode with Casey and study abroad touched mostly on opportunities for domestic students who may be listening to this, obviously we did talk about other things as well pertaining to things that could be relevant for international students coming here as well, because Casey does work as well with our international exchange students that come here on J1 visas for a semester at a time. And so definitely reach out to that. Casey has done an absolutely great job at getting that study abroad segment getting up and running again. I know during COVID, participation obviously wasn't as high with those programs, but since then he has been working with all these different universities in many different countries to get all these programs out there for students to take advantage of. So definitely reach out to Casey if you are interested in studying abroad. Another episode that we had this semester was an alumni spotlight, and this was actually our first one for this season, but this is another one that we are going to look into getting as a series, because obviously we have a lot of amazing international student alumni that are out there, and it's a little difficult because obviously all of them are out there on OPT or H-1B working all around the country, and so it might be a little difficult for us to get someone in our studio. But this episode we talked with Ankit, who is actually a former student worker in IPS, and so he is still around the area, and he was joined by his wife Joyti, who is a current student, but they had a lot of information to cover and a lot of fair points on their life and their transitions, because Ankit obviously went from being a Michigan Tech graduate and now is on an H-1B visa, whereas Joyti came here as a master's student, graduated, and now she's doing her PhD as a funded student. And so both of them create a very great episode with their creative perspectives and just journeys. I mean, it's crazy to see how a student can come here and, knowing them for a few years at a time, seeing where they end up, whether that's at a PhD or on H-1B or even a green card. So definitely check that out as well. They are lovely people, and we were happy to have them join us. And then finally, one of the last episodes that we had in our season was Ask an Immigration Attorney, which is again going to be a series that we have on the podcast because things are always changing. Things are always updated, and there's always tips and tricks that our lovely immigration attorney / director of IPS / co-host of this podcast, Christian, can provide. So, Farida, what was kind of touched on in that episode?
In that episode, Christian answered all the questions that you had about immigration, and how to get a green card as an international student. He talked about the pathways from F1 visa to OPT to STEM OPT to H1B visa, and also how you can also get a green card through a national interest waiver and the extraordinary ability visa types.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, Christian also touched a little bit about why he does what he does in this role and his passion behind it and kind of how he got to that point. And so big shout out to Christian. He has been an amazing asset to our department as well as our podcast, even though he's not here today. But we know that everything immigration related, especially in this time, is very stressful, and students are very uncertain of the risks or things that might happen further down the line. And so it is people like Christian that kind of settle those nerves a little bit and try to guide you as best as they can and give you guidance on these opportunities that you may have, as well as tips and tricks. So make sure you check out that episode because it is a very important episode. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, that is the end of our season 2 recap. Again, this is not a goodbye. It is a see you next season. However, Farida, she is a student here as well, and so at some point, I hate to say it, but she may say goodbye to the podcast sooner rather than later. So again, like I already kind of said, thank you to Christian for being my co-host with this. It's been so much fun. I feel like it's been really cool to hear from different students that we've talked to about their experiences, and not only that, but meeting some of our organizations and departments around campus. It's so cool because there's some of these people that I haven't seen very often before, haven't really talked to, and now that they've been on the podcast, we've had that chance to interact more. And so now, we say hi to each other all the time and ask how you're doing, and it's just really great to get to chat with all these different people. And thank you, Farida, for everything that you do with the podcast. And I just have to say, I just have to shout her out, and I hope she keeps this in the episode because, this will just kind of show the journey that we've had with this episode. But she does an amazing job at editing, because, this isn't a live podcast, and, I'm thankful for that, honestly, because, people make mistakes. We're human, and sometimes we mess up, and she is the one that edits out those mess ups. And honestly, I'm gonna let you all in on a little secret here, but we spent about the first 10 minutes in this room laughing, and so shout out to her for all the editing that she's gonna have to do for this episode, and thank God that Christian and I are normally the co-hosts, because if it was Farida and I don't think we would be very productive because we'd be laughing the whole time. So thank you for all your help and everything that you do for the podcast.
Thank you, Jamie. This has been a very, very, very wonderful experience, and I am not looking forward to the part where I have to say goodbye to this.
But maybe in that case, then, maybe Farida can come back in as an alumni spotlight episode.
Yes.
I always give my spoiler alerts, and that's not set in stone or anything, but maybe that's a future spoiler alert. But speaking of what's to come, again, we will have a season 3 coming out. Obviously, like I said, there's just so much information that could be put out there, whether that's immigration related or resources on campus or even just hearing people's stories. And so there is a lot that can be covered, and so we will be back for a season 3. We will have, like I said, our series continuing for different topics, such as our alumni spotlight, meeting with Christian as well to answer more questions about immigration attorney side of things, as well as mental health. And if you have any ideas of anything you want us to cover or anything you want us to talk about, or even if you want to come on and talk about something that you're passionate about or that you think would be beneficial information to the general community, definitely reach out. Let us know. You know where our office is located. You know our email. You can always just message us on whatever platform you're listening to on this as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in all the time to us, because I know that I don't enjoy listening to my own voice, but I'm happy that, you guys are enjoying these episodes, because we really have put a lot of work and effort into this, and it's fun to do. So thank you guys so much. I have to shout out my parents again, because I know they listen to a lot of these episodes, even though some of them are not relevant to them, such as OPT and CPT, but they are fans nevertheless. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Farida. And we will see you next time for our first episode in season 3 of the Taco Latte podcast.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been an IPS production with Michigan Tech University. If you would like to be featured in a future episode, reach out to us at ips@mtu.edu or come to our office in the administration building. Bye!